Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are across this great wide world of ours. I'm doing a video concerning proceeding with this Indian Removal Act of the 1830s and the consequences of all these removals of Native Americans, especially the five civilized tribes in Southeast United States. And the consequence of this was we had the early establishment of the reservation system, or the concept of the reservation systems that emerged during this time. And the issue becomes, when we look back to the 17th, 16th century. We talk of King Philip War. We talk about the War of 1812 with Tecumseh, and even before that, we talk about the Proclamation Act of 1763, and like with the Proclamation Act of 1763, which was before that, was the French and Indian War, the 7 Years' War. The United States, it was considered the French and Indian War, but in actuality, it was the 7 Years' War, and this is when the colonial powers of Spain, France, England fought for lands within the North America. And the downside of this was the Native American tribes, because what the Native American tribes were trying to save their way of life, or the reservations. And before this, like I said, when we're talking about this, is with the introduction of the Western civilization. The North America had not experienced the Black Plague, issues on smallpox, and all this would have a consequences with the Native American population. And this created this mindset that would ensue until after, like I said, throughout this 16th, 17th century. And the first incident of this, which would lead to the colonial opposition of England, would be the Proclamation of 1763. With the Proclamation of 1763, this led to the mindset that the colonials were able to cross what was at this time a line at the Alleghenies, or what is considered the Appalachian Mountains, and they weren't allowed to go to that way. And the reason the British monarch did this, because the fact of the matter is that they had just finished a 7 Years' War, World War, and they had to start paying the war debt. And this is where the institution of the Stamp Act and all that, because the king at the time felt his obligation that we had to pay that debt for that war. And part of that consequence was the Proclamation 1763 that said white settlements were not allowed past what I said was the Appalachian Mountains, and this would aggravate a lot of white settlements, and like I said, and this would also lead to other hostilities with Native American tribes, such as Iroquois, the Shawnee, Delaware, etc., especially in what was considered the Old Northwest Territory, or the Ohio Valley, which is predominantly made up of Indiana, Ohio, western Pennsylvania, northern Michigan, northern Wisconsin, because this is an area that became vital for white settlement. And the issue becomes moving more settlement of Native Americans more westward. Part of this becomes, what do we do with this? And then and like I said, this becomes an issue, especially with Andrew Jackson. Wanted Southeast, especially Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, especially to grow cotton and to increase slavery in the South. And this became free slavery. And the issue becomes that a lot of people would often talk about why people would not enslave Native Americans. They found it very rough. They would know the area too well, and that even if they try to enslave them, the issue would become you would put them somewhere, and because they would get out or get loose, they knew the area better than some of the white settlements. So that became not a possibility. And then the other issue become the issue of rice becomes a staple crop, especially in South Carolina. And the issue becomes that you needed a well irrigated system, and that they were more susceptible to diseases compared to African Americans, and didn't have what was considered the labor intensive at that time by 1670, which is a misclaimer because it's still the issue become these people were enslaved, they were taken from their country in Africa, and then forced into enslavement in southeastern part of the United States, excuse me. But the Native Americans would be pushed more and more west during this time. And with this Western movement came this concept of manifest destiny, which occurs around 1850s. And I've talked extensively about this as well, is that this mentality that white settlements are supposed to conquer or settle the wilderness. I mean, this is explicitly talked in the Bible as well, Christian Bible, that that it's behooves you to get out of the wilderness and into settlements and prosperity. So in essence, this manifest destiny becomes a key aspect of many white settlements, especially Christian white settlers and their movement westward. And like I said, the issue becomes an issue in the 19th century, where they would place Native Americans on reservations, and because they didn't think about the consequences of reservations and putting these people on desolate areas that had no irrigation, no use of farming. So they would put them out in isolated areas, which was really a travesty in itself. And the issue becomes, what do we do with this reservation settlement? And there again, like I said, I've talked about this before, that we still have this concept of what the common note is the res, and instead of reservation, a lot of people will say res. And the consequence that becomes out of this is that people are less reluctant to move out of a system that they've been enslaved into, and then not necessarily being more empowered. And granted, like I said, I've talked about this previously. I got a book about the casinos and a diminishing return. But the concept that comes out of this is that we end up becoming, or the native people become dependent on resources by the government and not necessarily resources for themselves. Consequently, there's high social strife, low education, other issues as well, high violence, high drug use, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and then there's a high dropout out of high school. So, in essence, what the reservation created was not necessarily a issue of non-empowerment and self-attainment, but more or less a hampering of people and being able to accomplish their goals in life, because you're not self-empowering and you're not creating self-esteem, you're not creating motivation. And the tendency of the government is always, and we know that many people will realize that as well. The issue to many issues with the government is you get in government involved with something, chances are they're going to mess it up or they're going to stick more money in it to solve the problem. And then what is the difference? What's the different definition of insanity? Keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And like I said, I'm a big component that as we approach the 21st, 22nd century, we need to come up with a different style because, like I said, the reservation is a system based out of the 17th, 18th century, and it's really not caught up with modern times. And the government is more or less just keeps funneling money into the system without addressing the issues of how to do that. So in other words, what we do is we create these bureaus of regional bureaus and not necessarily turn the power over to the tribes itself, because really the tribal leaders know what they need and what they need to achieve in life, and not necessarily regional developments. And if you call out there, call a regional office, they say, well, it's up to the tribes itself. So there's some issues there where we're doing repeated work or redundancy in government jobs and not necessarily creating a positive atmosphere for Native Americans. And like I said, I'm a component, and that's one reason I created my channel, Native American, or the Native American Reservations, to help get people realize that there's a situation going on and that we need to address it. This year is an election year, and I'm hoping with my videos that I will be able to get some intellectual dialogue about this and to help better the lives of Native Americans. So anyway, this is just some thoughts. I will put a video out sometime middle of this week. Please like and subscribe to my channel. If you have any questions, I do have a few books out there. Water Quality on the Reservation. My thesis was on COVID and the effects on the reservation. I also have Casinos and Diminishing Return on the Reservations. All these books are available on Amazon. They're self-published. So with that said, folks, I hope to talk to you real soon, and you have a great day. Bye.